Squid Game is full of very funny moments. From the recruiter's park meltdown to Sae-byeok getting smacked out of her delusion, we'll be going over every funny moment in Squid Game, starting with one of the funniest, where in Season 1, Episode 1. Song-gun has already made quite an impression with his hilarious personality. From the moment he got jumped by his creditors, to sharing an embarrassing but still victorious moment at a claw machine with a kid he just met, his antics are endlessly entertaining. But as Goo-hun tries to make it back home after an awful reunion with his daughter, he's approached by the recruiter, who offers him a chance to win 100,000 yuan if he can beat him in a game of dodgeball. As Goo-hun starts playing, he remembers he's nothing more than walking poverty. And in that instant, the recruiter slaps the living daylight out of him as a form of payment.
I'll take 100 grand off per slap.
What follows is a relentless series of Goo-hun's failures, as each loss is met with a sharp slap from the recruiter. And just when Goo-hun succeeded and it was time to dish the hottest slap his hand could muster, he was instantly stopped, and then reminded he had won 100,000 yuan for the flip.
Your 100 grand.
You're really good looking.
Moving to the scene where player 212, also known as the annoying and weird Ha-min-yo, continues to harass the guards past her bedtime for a chance to smoke instead of pee. Sae-byeok immediately follows her in and climbs into the vents to check out their next game. So, with Sae-byeok crawling through the vents, Min-yo decides to traumatize the triangle guards by saying she feels like she's having a baby. But just when the guards have had enough,
"You bastard! What the hell? I can't believe this!"
Sae-byeok manages to complete her vent scouting just in time, wrapping up the tense moment with an unexpectedly hilarious encounter. At the start of Season 1, Episode 3, everyone stepped up to get food before the games began. In a brief moment, Ali is seen thanking them, and just before the scene ends, many fail to notice that Gui-han never actually ate anything from his spoon. But what makes this even funnier was the way Ali almost laughed when he realized he was the only one actually eating his food. Up next is another moment from the same episode during the Sugar Honeycombs game, aka Dalgona. The challenge was to carve a shape out of honeycomb candy. Cho Sang-woo, Gi-hun's friend, quickly figured this out after recognizing the shapes. He chose the easiest shape, a triangle, for himself, leaving Gi-hun to unknowingly pick the forbidden shape, an umbrella. At this point, everyone knew Gui-han was cooked. Luckily, thanks to plot armor, he notices that his sweat slightly thinned out the cookie. He immediately starts licking it non-stop, leaving others in the room both shocked and possibly concerned. Watching him get up close and personal with the cookie was a bit unsettling. But once the other players followed suit, the whole scene turned unexpectedly hilarious. Even the square guard monitoring the security footage seemed caught off guard by what he was witnessing, making the moment even funnier. In the end, Gui-han's frantic cookie licking saved him just as the timer hit 0. The same can't be said for the unlucky players who tried to copy his method, but still failed to finish in time. As for Season 2's first episode, there's a scene where the thugs hired by Gui-han with his winnings are being briefed on the recruiter's identity and whereabouts. What follows is an even funnier sequence of the thugs posing for selfies at various subway stations, asking random strangers if they've seen him, and even reenacting the dodgeball game he uses to approach people, all in their clueless attempt to track him down.
The team that tracks down this man gets 500 million won as a bonus.
The thugs keep rummaging through briefcases and questioning anyone in a suit. Though none of them succeeded at the time, their relentless pursuit, fueled purely by money, is both amusing and oddly impressive. Unlike the recruiter, who typically roamed subway stations to lure people into the games, this situation was different. For some reason, he decided to buy a large number of lottery tickets and bread, all while unknowingly being tailed by the loan sharks Gui-han had hired to track him. He then heads to the park and offers the homeless people there a choice, a bread roll or a lottery ticket.
You can only choose one, bread roll or lotto ticket.
The majority of the people choose the lottery ticket, much to the recruiter's disappointment. After making his way around the park, he heads to the center and, to everyone's surprise, dumps out the bread before collapsing in front of them. Like, I'm not even sure how much he hated the social experiment outcome, but bro, what did the breads even do to you? With so many questions to ask about this scene, paired with the recruiter completely flipping out on his own bread, it's already hilarious. But the best part? The reactions of both the thugs and the homeless people. Moving on from playing Russian roulette against the recruiter and winning, Gi-hun was then placed back into the game for the second time. His awakening to the same bunk bed environment made it seem like he was either getting rizzed up by player 044 or was straight up baked just from hearing the song he normally heard when playing the game. Either way, this was still a very funny scene to witness. Not too long into episode 3, we meet the one and only Thanos, playing as number 230. To be honest, Thanos deserves his own category. Because out of all the players in Season 2, he is the only one to not only create a trend with his hilarious mix of language and English rapping. His first on-screen moment, featuring his iconic love rap, happened just before the red light, green light game.
You and me together, yeah, I feel the power. Found her hidden in the weeds, yeah, my beauty flower. Red, orange, yellow, green, I'm a legend, Thanos. Sweet-ass tracksuit looking tight. Hope I get the green light. I like you.
Even looking at Namguy's expression, you can tell this was definitely hilarious to witness. But just when Thanos happened to be right about calling her his beauty flower, a bee landed on her neck.
I just moved, didn't I?
His crush had received some headshots for moving after being told they would be eliminated. As things became a bit heated, and bro started playing like Gui-han wasn't even the main character, literally kick-jumping and dancing to the finish line like he was chosen to respawn if shit goes south. Moving on to our main character, Gi-han had finally completed that round and the time to vote was upon them. Gui-han quickly tried convincing everyone to vote X, since that was the only way they could leave the game without any more bloodshed. Now, several things came in the way of his attempts. First was the switch of the rule that states, if they quit the game and decide to go home, the money would be split among the remaining players. And let's not forget the frontman voting to make sure they all continue to play the game. Now where things get hilarious is just after the voting in episode 4, when Young-il comes up to Gui-han asking for advice on what the next game is and how they should beat it. After Gui-han finally reveals that the game is Dalgona, aka Sugar Honeycombs, he calls out all the shapes that were chosen. Young-il immediately makes fun of the fact that some players picked the umbrella, saying those unlucky bastards must have bitten the dust, all while Gun gives him a death stare. Since the frontman watched the Dalgona game that took place all those years ago, he obviously knew that Gui-han was one of those unlucky bastards who picked the umbrella and just wanted to taunt him, which makes the scene even funnier. Now things got even funnier from this point, because Gui-han had a dream where he led everyone to pick the triangle for the Dalgona game. But it seems even his dreams were set on traumatizing him further, because the instant he opened the cookie cover, with everyone lined up behind him for the same fate, he was greeted by some sort of shape that, according to Young-bae,
The hell kind of shape is that? Even an ex-Marine couldn't get that out. Oh.
Going straight to one of Thanos' most popular moments, before the six-legged pentathlon, Thanos and Namgui were picking teammates to complete their squad for the game. Namgui, using his actual brain before he was dosed with pills later in the series, suggested they pick a male for their team instead of the woman Thanos had approached to join, aka Senorita.
I'll destroy anybody who dares stand in the way of my greatness. You stick with me from now on.
Although the line where he speaks of his greatness was hilarious, the funniest part was their expression of utter disappointment when she introduced him to Minsu. At this point, I'm not sure if Namgui was trying everything on Earth to make sure he did not laugh while acting alongside Thanos, but the side-eye he gives when he sees Minsu is beyond hilarious, which forced Thanos into welcoming him to the Thanos world.
Welcome to the Thanos world.
The six-legged pentathlon was the latest and most unique game since the start of Season 2, because it was not just one player who had to beat it, but 5 of them, while going through a series of games, starting with Dokji, Flying Stone, Gongji, Spinning Top, and finally Jegi. Some were certainly better at the games than others, which was unfortunately proven by player 198's team. You might know him as the guy who failed miserably while playing the game Flying Stone for his team. His team started off quite confident, passing the first game with ease. Sadly, their luck ended there. Player 198 failed his first throw, then his second, then his third, and almost every single one after that. The one time he managed to hit the stone, it didn't even count because he stepped over the line. This alone is enough to make the scene chuckle-worthy. But his team's reactions were what made it even better. Now, just to be clear, I'm not sure if they were chanting Hawk Trua as a form of motivation. When player 198 finally lands his throw, he ends up pissing himself. And instead of celebrating, his team can't even muster the energy to cheer. They just scold him for being completely useless. This next scene was a real takeaway on how the backfire of being crazy can literally straighten someone up, especially when it comes to a life and death situation. During episode 5, where Cho Hyun-ju, also known as player 120, and her team were next to play after the first two teams had been eliminated for not meeting up to the time they had left. Now the same would have been said for Hyun-ju's team. When time had come for them to overcome the spinning top, Sae-byeok, which we all know as the crazy spirit lady that tried rizzing, or better yet traumatizing Gwi-han from the very first moment he woke up, was having a very hard time just rolling the spinning top. And as many of her attempts kept failing and failing, she had given up in front of the whole team. And in her words, she said, "The gods have chosen to abandon us." And just as Sae-byeok kept rambling while wasting time, Hyun-ju gave her a holy schmacking to the face. The moment her nose started bleeding, even the spirits probably felt it and knew the hour to dip had come upon them.
If you give up now, I'll kill you before any of your damn gods can. Now do it. Hurry!
And that threat alone was what helped them escape elimination. Even following through on their celebration for being the first team to successfully pass that round, anyone with eyes could see the absolute joy on the faces of Gwi-han and Young-il. The absolute humor in these two really hit different when you realize that Bro had forgotten his job at that point in time. Although this kind of looked like a reunion between two ex-winners. But it's clear once the time for voting comes, Bro will always be locked in till the very end. Speaking of locked in, it's clear the frontman made sure they were the last in case they lost, so no one would witness his survival. As Gwi-han's team had passed both Dokji, Gonggi, and Flying Stone during their first trial, it seemed like they were set for success without a doubt. But things only became tricky when they suddenly hit a brick wall. And that brick wall just happened to be the spinning top. The way things kept getting funnier from this point is crazy. In-ho repeatedly fails to get the top to spin by itself, and after somehow launching it behind him and wasting time, he finally loses it. He starts yelling and hitting himself, while the team just stares at him in concern before Gwi-han finally stops him. Daeho's reaction is probably the funniest. The fact that he starts flipping out for being bad at his own game is hilarious. Come to think of it, the last two scenes of each phase were what I'd call humor in slow-motion fashion. Only with Gwi-han's approach to playing Jegi made it clear that Bro has played these games before. Although Gwi-han got too comfy and almost failed to land the last hit on the shuttlecock. In that moment, Jung-bae was in slow-mo terror. I get no one can blame him since time was almost running out. But his reaction is by far the funniest among the group. Following up on the next game, we have Thanos and Nam-gi highly dosed up on some sugar pills from the last game. At this point in the series, everyone knew Thanos and Nam-gi were both beefing with MG Coin, aka Myung-gi, or player 333. During the scene where he confronts him, Thanos declares that from that moment on, Myung-gi would be his slave.
I get my money back, you're free to go. And you get your life again, yo.
And what makes this scene funny is the fact that Myung-gi reminded him that for that to happen, Thanos would need to die. And his reaction to not even realizing it was hilarious. From what we've seen so far, it's clear those pills really hit different. Because while everyone was anxiously waiting for the music to stop so they could pick a room, our boy Thanos was busy dancing and singing with Nam-gi like there was no chance in hell they could be eliminated. Things didn't end there at all. As every round became more and more brutal with passing time, Thanos eventually kicked out one of his fans. And upon his exit from the doors, his accent and attitude when he spoke English were hilarious.
Hey, welcome back, my friends.
But just minutes before his death, when he was threatening Min-soo for voting X, the way he said he was sorry was, in my opinion, very hilarious.
I'm sorry, boy.
Thanos kicking out his minion and harassing Min-soo is hilariously in character, and definitely one of the best moments of the episode. It's a shame we won't get to see more of them in Season 3, because it would definitely liven up what's sure to be a dark season.